Escape from Tarkov Arena has been out for a little while now, and I've been playing it for a few days. I really tried to like this game. I really did. I just don't. In my first impressions video, it was talking about the good and bad points based on my first 24 hours playing. A little bit further on, I feel like I've changed some of my opinions, and my thoughts and opinions on this as a competitive shooter has gone down a little bit. Let's talk about all my reasons why in this video. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get straight in and talk about my most despised feature, and that is the matchmaking system. Let me talk you through the process from the main menu into getting into your first arena match. You go into the arena battle menu, then you click team fight or your 2v2 mode, but team fight's the most common one, and then you have to wait. It waits until it finds you a match, and then once you've found a match, a big bar will pop up on your screen and it will tell you to accept it. That's my first gripe. You've already queued in and you've already picked the maps that you want to select. Why do you then need to, a few seconds later, accept it again? Because there's always one person that doesn't. No matter if 9 out of 10 of the players accept and one person doesn't, the match will be cancelled and it will go and look for another map. Now bear in mind there's only 5 maps that you can choose from, and you can pick and choose all of them before you start searching for a match, whether you want to play them or not, and then it'll only queue for the ones that you want to play. So moving on from there, it goes round a few times. Finally, you've found a match that everyone wants to play, you've all clicked accept. From then, it then goes and finds a server that you can play on. I don't know why it doesn't do that beforehand, but hey ho, you're finding a server. As a solo player, it takes about 3 to 4 minutes from my personal experience on average. As a team, as a 5-man team, it seems to take longer, about 6 to 7 minutes on my average playtime. Some of us were waiting 20 minutes to get into a game, and then it was stuck, and then we backed out. And then by the way, if you back out at this stage, you get a 15-minute cooldown and a ban and you can't play. It's a weird one, but it's not a quick match in time, that's for sure. And then after all that, you finally get into your game and you have to pick your loadout, and everyone's got another minute then to sit there and procrastinate until they pick their loadout. And then at that point, if they don't, they get put in with gunmen, who's just a random bloke with no armor and just a pistol. That whole process on average takes me about 6-7 minutes, and for a game that can last a less time than that before you have to go and queue again, I don't know. That needs looking at, for sure. It's bad enough having that amount of wait time in regular Tarkov, but at least in regular Tarkov you have the ability to sit in a raid for, 20-30 minutes before you need to extract. In this one, there are 1.5 rounds, and they're usually over way before then, and it's only first to win 5 rounds to win the whole game, so... Now in my first impressions video, I talked quite highly of how I liked the concept of the progression in terms of gear, where you have to use a certain character to unlock the next tier, and vice versa. That unfortunately is tainted by the fact that you can't lock your matches based on your tier level and your gear level, but instead is done based on your ARP, which is your ranking, your overall character rank, so how many games you've won compared to how many you've lost, sort of thing. And whilst this is good in some aspects, being matched with people in your same skill set, it's not when it's not allowing you to restrict your tier rank in your terms of gear as well. For example, I have an ARP of something like 1750, 1800, but I've been grinding really hard in the scout tree, and I am 6 tiers down in the scout tree, meaning I've got a PP19 with PPP ammunition or a MP5 with AP 6.3, but I can still be paired with people that are in their tier 1s or using something like an OPSKS with T ammunition, people with absolutely 0 armor going in with a PP19 with PST ammunition or green tracer and an MP5. It's an experience, considering on the flip side of it, you could be paired against people with Altins and Reader Ms, and there's no way you can actually counter that. But the thing is, there's nothing stopping there being 2 factors in terms of matchmaking and having it go based on ARP rank and, of course, gear rating as well. I get it in the first 24 hours when people are absolutely being drip-fed into the game that it could have caused a problem with longer match times, but now, according to BSG, out of all of the people that were waiting for Arena, well over a third are now into it and actually able to play. That is a very big pool of people that you can pick from and allow both ARP matchmaking and also, of course, the normal gear matchmaking as well. And because of this, I think you're severely punished if you want to explore different trees rather than focusing on a single one, especially if this game is going to wipe. The amount of XP you need anyway is absurd, but if you're going to dabble in between trees rather than focusing on a single one, you're going to be considerably worse off than those that are just focusing on one tree and progressing down the tiers as quick as possible, because you're going to have worse weapons, worse armor, worse ammo, worse meds, worse everything. And you could say, well, that's the same in normal Tarkov as well, and I've heard other people say this exact thing that I'm about to, but at least you've got choice in normal Tarkov. You can identify someone's got a massive kit and you're using nothing but a shitty weapon with terrible ammo. You can choose not to take that fight. You can choose to turn the other way and not engage. You can extract without having everyone dead on the map. Unlike Arena, where it is a 5v5 team deathmatch or a 2v2v2, you have to kill everyone. Let's talk about the maps and the objectives, and I'm mainly talking about the objectives in Teamfight, but the maps in general, they're based on 3 main lanes. You've got the middle and the left and the right. But unlike other competitive shooters, CSGO being a prime example, where it's 3 lanes, it is a lot more cluttered than other shooters out there, meaning you've got much more traversing up and down than just the 3 typical lanes left, right and middle. For example, in Air Pit being a perfect example, you've got the plane in the middle, but that has the lower level of the plane, the upper level of the plane, and the underneath of the plane that you've got to consider as well as a whole fenced off area around it. So if you need to run directly through the middle, one side of the map to the other, you can't unless you go around the plane, which ruins the fact that if you want to capture the objective, if all 5 of the team aren't taken out in the first minute and a half, a flag appears on either A side or B side objective, and you need to get there. If one person is capping it, it only takes 7 seconds of them not being shot for it to cap and win the round. Unfortunately, not just on Air Pit, but on any of the maps inside of this arena, you've got the objectives way too far away. It's only 7 seconds, and if it's a 1v1 situation, one person can cap the objective, and if you're on the other side of the map, you're not even going to make it anywhere close before that 7 seconds count down. On screen now is some bird's eye images of each of the arena maps, and although they are typical 3-lane maps and you can see the 3 main channels that you need to run, you can see just how cluttered they are and how many different pathing routes you can take. But of course, at the same time, that means a lot of those routes are dead ends and people can just be sitting at the end of it, meaning when the objective is being captured, if you need to run from one side of the map to the other, unless you know the exact pathing you need to take, it will take you longer than the time limit needed to capture the objective. And then if that isn't capped, the bloodhounds come in and start cleaning up, and of course it just means that you need to hide somewhere in the middle of the map because they come from either side. So if you're in the middle of the map hiding away in a corner holding the only angle that you can get in at, then you're going to be okay shooting the bloodhounds, and more than likely the other people on the enemy team will die to them first. While we're on the topic of maps, then let's talk about the design flaws that they've currently got going. For a competitive shooter, it hasn't been designed very well, and the fact that they tested this out with eSport Pros, I'm surprised this wasn't tested thoroughly beforehand releasing it to the public. For example, on the Sawmill map, you can jump out of your spawn before the gate opens just by jumping on the table, jumping on someone's head, and then jumping over the gate. That will allow you to run pretty much halfway into the map before the gates open for either team, allowing you to get a much quicker head start, and you can catch people pretty much coming straight out of spawn if you full sprint, and even more so if you have an injector on your loadout that increases your stamina recovery. And then you go to Bay 5 as another prime example. There's a couple of portaloos right outside one of the spawns. If you stand to the very left of them and look directly straight, everything disappears. Literally the whole thing disappears, but you can still see players and the route they are taking. So you can see the enemies coming out of their spawn, and you can call out to your team exactly who's going where, like 3 going left, 3 going right. You know, it's stupid. It's basically like having wall hacks, but you're taking advantage of a game bug rather than actually hacking. I've also been getting frequent missing texture bugs as well on the different maps, mainly on the Sawmill map, but it happens on quite a lot of them and it's getting more and more frequent. Don't know what that's all about, but everything turns blue and it goes around window frames as well, so it makes it a lot harder to see through little gaps in windows like the barn on the Sawmill map as a prime example. It's little oversights like these, especially the first 2 that I mentioned, that can give a really unfair advantage to a single team just by spawning on a certain side, and that isn't fair. A simple solution of putting an invisible wall above all of the gates and the spawn points around the maps is a very simple solution. The maps are not small enough that you can grenade lob one grenade from one spawn to another, so no one's really going to be throwing anything high for it to bounce back off of those walls, and it will stop things like this being discovered. And the fact that it's been discovered this quickly, I'm sure that there are more out there that haven't been found yet. So just having a little finishing touches on the maps and having a bit of QA on the map design would be much appreciated. And then of course I've talked about the audio issues and all that before, but I'll say it again, audio is not great, especially if you're listening for audio vertically. You're not going to hear people coming up to you a lot of the time, and that's why you get a lot of people sneaking up behind you really quickly, even if they're full sprinting and you can only hear them at the last second. I've had it countless times where I've been shot from the back in the middle of playing because people have come down the metal stairs behind me and I haven't been able to hear them until they are literally at my backside. And while we're talking about Tarkovisms like audio, let's talk about desync as well. I thought it wasn't as bad as in normal Tarkov, but more I play it, the more I see that it is. I've been killed a few times by being completely round a corner, and then when you look at the spectator cam, I'm standing right in front of them. It's a weird one. I originally thought that Tarkov Arena was going to be on higher tick rate servers, that's what they said, but from looking at it, I don't think it is. Who knows, we could see it change in the future, or it might be just me, but then again, it seems to be getting worse the more players that enter the game, so who knows, we'll just see how that one plays out. And I'm going to die on this hill as well. Armbands. Just make them a little bit more visible and make them so they don't de-render further than like 50 meters away, because they still do that. And I got killed today actually by a guy sitting in a tower on bowl sniping because I was being chased by the enemy team and he thought I was the enemy team because he couldn't see my armband until I was falling on the floor. This dickhead.
Sorry for shooting you, bro. I got it mixed up. I'm
Mate,
sorry.
it's the armbands. They're all like hard to see. I don't blame you, don't worry.
I'm so sorry.
It's all good. Just a little bit more, oh, we're red team, or oh, we're blue team, because that isn't obvious either. It has been very common that I've forgotten what team I'm on, and I've had to check my inventory to see what armband I'm wearing. I know you don't want too much HUD, but a little indicator to say these are friendly, like little IR blinkers or something like that to say, oh, we're friendly, wouldn't go amiss. You know, you're trying to be a competitive shooter, take out some of the realism aspects, because it will make the gameplay experience a whole lot better. Speaking of taking out some of the realism aspects, and something that I don't mind in normal Tarkov, but in this game I think that they should just be removed. Flashbangs are awful in this game. For example, as I mentioned earlier, rounds are only a minute and a half long. Well, a flashbang, if you get full frontal with it, lasts longer than a minute and a half in total. The full effects of a Zarya flashbang are as follows. So if you're looking directly at an explosion and you get full frontal, you have a 40 seconds complete blindness, and it will slowly start to fade away after 20 seconds of that time. And then after that 40 seconds you should start to be able to see again, but you'll still have that flash impact on your screen for a further 90 seconds. And of course, if you're hit with a flashbang, you also have 20 seconds of tinnitus and muffled audio. If audio wasn't bad enough, having muffled audio even further for an additional 20 seconds is not fun at all. I know they're in some of the kits and not all of them, but they are severely overpowered in a game mode as short as this and with maps as small as this. So if a whole team's running flashbangs, they can flash every lane and you'll be stuffed if everyone gets hit by them. Now, coming from someone who's played Contract Wars and Hired Ops, which is basically the baby cousin of Tarkov Arena, it's just easy to say that, you know, some of the realism aspects just need to be worn off for this game mode, especially when at this moment it is just kill the other team fastest. If there was more, you know, you get points as a team for holding down an objective for longer, then that might be a bit different. Or I don't know, have a completely non-PvP mode where you have to have round based and you fight off against scavs. That would be quite a fun one to have. or just even having casual matchmaking. At the minute we've only got competitive, but with all the issues mentioned in this video, I don't think a competitive game mode was what you should have started with. You should have started with casual, where people didn't mind dying and maybe having a little respawn time or respawn tokens, for example, so you can get yourself back in the fight and you're capturing an objective rather than just kill the other team quickest. I think that would have been better suited at this moment in time. But I want to know your thoughts and opinions now that more people have access to Arena. If you've played it yourself, let me know down below. If you've seen more gameplay of it, let me know what your thoughts are. I like it for a few games, but after that and after matching more than you're actually in a game, it gets really stale really quickly. That's my thoughts. I think that'll stay my thoughts now. I probably won't play a lot of this on the channel, but it's fun for those that like the PvP, I suppose, but that's about it.